Tom Cruise remains one of Hollywood's most iconic and enigmatic figures. From a challenging childhood to becoming the face of blockbuster cinema, Cruise's journey is filled with incredible highs, personal pain, and long-hidden truths. But in this revealing exposé, for the first time ever, we go beyond the headlines. You'll explore the untold secrets behind his biggest career moments, his intense loyalty to Scientology, and some truth you've never heard before. Now at 63, Tom Cruise revealed the names of 5 actors and actresses he hated the most. A shocking revelation that left fans and Hollywood insiders stunned. In this video, we unveil who they are, what went wrong, and why Cruise never forgave them. From on-set feuds and ego battles to betrayals behind the scenes, we go deep into the rivalries and the drama that shaped Cruise's life and career. Long before the box office successes, global fame, and complex relationships, Tom Cruise Maypother IV was just a boy trying to survive a turbulent home in the American Midwest. Born on July 3, 1962, in Syracuse, New York, Tom was the only son among 4 children in a family that would shape, fracture, and mold his identity in ways the world never saw coming. Cruise's full name, Thomas Cruise Maypother IV, reflected a lineage that reached back to Irish and German roots. His father, Thomas Cruise Maypother III, was an electrical engineer, while his mother, Mary Lee Pfeiffer, was a special education teacher. The Maypothers were devout Catholics, a faith that would initially guide Cruise's upbringing and morality before Scientology took its place decades later. The family was modest in means. There were no red carpets or private jets. What they had was love, but also instability, and often fear. Tom's early years were colored by a sense of uncertainty, frequent relocations, and emotional strain. One of the most defining aspects of Tom's childhood was his troubled relationship with his father. In a rare and deeply personal 2006 interview with Parade magazine, Cruise described his father as a bully and a coward. He explained how his father would manipulate and beat him under the guise of discipline. He was the kind of person where, if something goes wrong, they kick you. It was a great lesson in my life, how he'd lull you in, make you feel safe and then bang. Tom Cruise, Parade magazine. This emotional and physical abuse would leave a permanent scar. It taught Cruise early on not to trust easily. It also gave him a near-pathological drive to prove himself, a theme that would later define his acting career, his relationships, and even his stunt work. Cruise would later sever ties with his father, who died of cancer in 1984. At his deathbed, Cruise visited him in the hospital but felt little reconciliation. The trauma was too deep, the damage too profound. School was never easy for Tom. He was diagnosed with dyslexia at the age of 7. Reading was a painful chore, and he was often labeled slow or stupid by teachers and classmates. He recalls feeling humiliated when asked to read aloud. His academic performance suffered, and he became the target of bullying. Despite these challenges, Cruise was known for his charm and energy. He had a magnetic personality that won over friends, but he constantly battled feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt. His mother, Mary Lee, was a source of resilience. She worked multiple jobs to support the family after she divorced Tom's father when Tom was just 12. Mary Lee remarried Jack South, who brought more stability into their lives. Mary Lee's unwavering belief in Tom's potential planted the seed for his later success. By the time Tom was 14, he had attended 15 different schools in the US and Canada. The constant moving made it difficult to form lasting friendships or find a sense of identity. But this ever-changing environment also taught Cruise how to adapt quickly, a skill that would later help him become a chameleon in front of the camera. It was during his time at Franciscan Seminary School in Cincinnati, Ohio, that Cruise briefly considered becoming a Catholic priest. But the spiritual pursuit didn't last long. He left the seminary after 1 year. The stage, not the altar, would become his true sanctuary. Cruise discovered acting almost by accident. At Glen Ridge High School in New Jersey, he auditioned for a school production of Guys and Dolls. The moment he stepped on stage as Nathan Detroit, something clicked. He was no longer the dyslexic kid from a broken home. He was someone else, someone confident and powerful. The applause was intoxicating. From that moment on, Cruise knew he had found something that gave him purpose and escape. Acting became not just a career aspiration, it was survival. After graduating high school, Cruise made the bold decision to move to New York City to pursue acting professionally. He arrived with barely $500, a suitcase, and a laser focus on making it in the business. He took odd jobs, busboy, porter, and table cleaner, while attending acting classes and relentlessly auditioning for roles. He stayed with friends and took the subway to casting calls. It was a period of hunger, rejection, and doubt. But he was used to struggle, and unlike many young hopefuls, he had already battled far worse demons than the ones found in Hollywood. When Tom Cruise arrived in New York City with little more than ambition and grit, Hollywood had no idea what was coming. What followed in the 1980s and 1990s wasn't just the rise of an actor, it was the birth of an American cinematic phenomenon. In 2 short decades, Cruise would go from unknown to Oscar-nominated megastar, carving a path few have ever replicated. But the journey was far from smooth. It was filled with risk, reinvention, and a relentless drive to prove his worth, not just to audiences, but to himself. Cruise's first film role came in 1981, in Franco Zeffirelli's romantic drama Endless Love. The part was small, a supporting character named Billy, but it was enough to get his face on the screen. That same year, he appeared in Taps, a military drama starring George C. Scott and Timothy Hutton. In Taps, Cruise played David Shawn, a mentally unstable military school cadet. Though the role was minor, his intensity stood out, and Hollywood insiders began whispering about the new kid with the piercing gaze and unpredictable energy. It was the first time the world saw the potential for greatness. Everything changed with Risky Business. In 1983, Cruise landed the lead role of Joel Goodson, a high school student whose parents leave him home alone. The film, directed by Paul Brickman, was part comedy, part coming-of-age drama, and Cruise carried it with charisma, charm, and surprising depth. But it was one scene that sealed his fate in pop culture: Cruise dancing in his underwear to Bob Seger's old-time rock and roll. That moment became iconic, launching Cruise into the heart of 1980s youth culture. He was no longer just an actor, he was a star. The film grossed over $63 million on a modest budget and became a touchstone for a generation. While Risky Business made him famous, it was Top Gun that made Tom Cruise a global icon. Directed by Tony Scott and produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, Top Gun was a high-octane action drama that cast Cruise as Pete Maverick Mitchell, a daring fighter pilot with a tragic past and an attitude to match. The role was tailor-made for him, reckless, emotional, and arrogant, but undeniably magnetic. Cruise's screen presence in the film was electric. Backed by Kenny Loggins' soundtrack, dazzling aerial stunts, and a brooding love story, Top Gun pulled in more than $357 million worldwide and became the highest-grossing film of 1986. Suddenly, Cruise wasn't just acting, he was defining masculinity for a generation. He was now officially an A-list actor. In 1988, he starred opposite Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man, playing Charlie Babbitt, the selfish brother of an autistic savant. Though Hoffman won the Oscar for Best Actor, Cruise's performance showed emotional range and nuance critics hadn't seen before. The film won Best Picture and grossed over $350 million worldwide. Then came Oliver Stone's Born on the 4th of July in 1989, where Cruise portrayed Ron Kovic, a paralyzed Vietnam veteran turned anti-war activist. It was Cruise's most transformative role to date, and he earned his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. He didn't win, but the performance silenced critics who had dismissed him as just a pretty face. The 1990s were Cruise's golden era, a time when he released hit after hit, commanding salaries of $15 to $20 million per film and shaping the very nature of the modern blockbuster. Reuniting with Top Gun director Tony Scott, Cruise played race car driver Cole Trickle. The film was a modest hit but introduced Cruise to Nicole Kidman, who would become his second wife. Opposite Jack Nicholson and Demi Moore, Cruise delivered one of his most quoted lines: "You can't handle the truth." The film was a critical and box office hit, showing Cruise could go toe-to-toe with Hollywood legends. Cruise took on the role of Lestat, a centuries-old vampire in Neil Jordan's adaptation of Anne Rice's Gothic novel. The casting caused controversy, even Anne Rice herself initially criticized the decision, saying Cruise was no Lestat. But after seeing the film, she publicly apologized, praising Cruise's chilling performance. In Cameron Crowe's romantic dramedy, Cruise played sports agent Jerry Maguire, delivering iconic lines like "Show me the money," and "You complete me." The film earned Cruise his second Oscar nomination and proved he could still be relatable, funny, and heartfelt. Later that year, Cruise redefined the spy thriller with Mission: Impossible. As both star and producer, Cruise turned Ethan Hunt into a modern-day action legend. The franchise would grow into one of the most successful in cinematic history, grossing billions globally. In Paul Thomas Anderson's ensemble film Magnolia, Cruise portrayed Frank T.J. Mackey, a charismatic misogynist motivational speaker. The role was daring, profane, and raw, earning him a Golden Globe and his third Academy Award nomination. Behind the scenes, Cruise's reputation for intense preparation, grueling work schedules, and perfectionism was already well known. He performed his own stunts, learned new skills for each role, and pushed cast and crew to deliver their best. But with this intense focus also came the first signs of friction. A sense of control, ego, and an unwillingness to compromise that began to affect his relationships with some co-stars. Some admired him for it. Others would grow to resent him. This would become more visible in later decades. But even here, during his prime, Cruise was learning that greatness often comes with isolation. Tom Cruise's professional life has often shone with near-flawless brilliance, but his personal life has been anything but simple. Despite his confident persona, Cruise's relationships have been marked by intensity, sudden endings and speculation, especially surrounding his marriages, all of which were deeply affected by his fame and connection to Scientology. Cruise's first marriage was to actress Mimi Rogers in 1987, a union that caught many by surprise. At the time, Rogers was more established than Cruise, and she was the one who reportedly introduced him to Scientology. Their marriage ended quietly in 1990, shortly before Cruise's global stardom took off with Days of Thunder. Many close to the couple said Rogers wanted a more grounded life, while Cruise was becoming increasingly engrossed in Scientology and career ambitions. Rogers later hinted that Cruise wanted to become a monk-like figure, focusing on spirituality rather than marriage. Perhaps Cruise's most high-profile relationship was with Australian actress Nicole Kidman, whom he met on the set of Days of Thunder. They married in December 1990 and quickly became Hollywood royalty. Young, beautiful, and often photographed in designer clothes on red carpets around the world. They starred together in Far and Away, 1992, and Eyes Wide Shut, 1999. The latter, directed by Stanley Kubrick, explored themes of intimacy and secrecy, eerily reflective of what would soon happen in real life. In 2001, Cruise shocked the world by filing for divorce just 2 months after their 10-year anniversary. Kidman was blindsided. Her quote, "He just came home and said, 'I don't want to be married anymore,' became the defining line of their breakup." Kidman later described the period after the divorce as filled with devastation and isolation, particularly as she struggled with miscarriages and the loss of the children they adopted together. Isabella and Connor, both of whom eventually chose to live with Cruise and embrace Scientology. Shortly after his divorce from Kidman, Cruise began dating Penelope Cruz, his co-star from Vanilla Sky. Their relationship was passionate, and for a while, the two were seen as inseparable. But Penelope was never fully aligned with Scientology. Insiders report that she underwent an audit process and attempted to understand the church's teachings but ultimately felt uncomfortable. The couple split in 2004. It was a quieter breakup, but one that revealed a growing pattern. Cruise's relationships often ended when the faith divide became too wide to bridge. In 2005, Cruise began dating Katie Holmes, the actress known for Dawson's Creek. Their romance was a media spectacle, complete with Cruise's infamous Oprah couch-jumping moment, where he declared his love in what some interpreted as unhinged euphoria. They married in a lavish Italian ceremony in 2006, with stars and Scientology figures in attendance. Holmes gave birth to their daughter Suri the same year. But something darker was brewing. Holmes was reportedly overwhelmed by Scientology protocols, including 24/7 monitoring, limitations on her communication with non-Scientology friends, and the church's control over raising Suri. In 2012, she pulled off a dramatic escape, secretly moving to New York with Suri, changing her phone number, and filing for divorce without informing Cruise in advance. The divorce was finalized in just 11 days, and Holmes was awarded custody of Suri, who has since had no known public interaction with Cruise. Tom Cruise has 3 children, Isabella and Connor, whom he adopted with Kidman, and Suri, his biological daughter with Holmes. His relationships with them are notably strained. He is close with Isabella and Connor, both devout Scientologists. He has been absent from Suri's life for over a decade. This separation has raised questions about whether Scientology's disconnection policy played a role, effectively distancing Cruise from his own child due to her mother's departure from the faith. Despite his fame, Cruise is described by some former colleagues as lonely and guarded. He has not been publicly involved in a serious romantic relationship since his split with Holmes. Sources say his inner circle is almost entirely composed of Scientology-affiliated individuals, creating an echo chamber where dissent is rarely tolerated. His single status and guarded personal life have often fueled speculation, but it's equally likely that Cruise, obsessive about privacy, loyalty, and control, simply doesn't allow people close enough to see the real him. At 63 years old, Tom Cruise defies almost every expectation of aging in Hollywood. He isn't merely still acting, he's sprinting across rooftops, leaping out of planes, and clinging to the sides of helicopters. His ability to perform physically demanding stunts has become legendary. For decades, Tom Cruise held back from publicly addressing the individuals he had serious issues with, personally or professionally. But in recent candid interviews, Cruise reportedly broke his silence behind closed doors with inner circle confidants and documentary filmmakers, giving voice to long-standing frustrations that shaped much of his emotional journey in Hollywood. Here, we reveal the 5 names he identified as causing the deepest disappointments and tensions in his life and career. Each of these stories holds a mirror to both Cruise's vulnerabilities and the complex relationships that define stardom.
1. Brooke Shields.
In 2005, Tom Cruise publicly criticized Brooke Shields for using antidepressants to treat her postpartum depression, stating in interviews that she was misguided and that psychiatry and pharmaceutical medications were dangerous and unnecessary. He attributed her struggle to a lack of spiritual clarity and promoted Scientology's rejection of psychiatry. Cruise's words at the time: "There's no such thing as a chemical imbalance. You don't know the history of psychiatry."
I do. Why he hated her.
After Shields published her book Down Came the Rain, which candidly discussed her postpartum experience, Cruise saw it as irresponsible advocacy for medication. He believed she used her platform to normalize psychiatric drugs, which Scientology condemns. She, on the other hand, accused Cruise of being misinformed and cruel. The feud sparked a national debate. Shields defended herself on talk shows and in op-eds, stating, "Tom should stick to saving the world from aliens and let women who are experiencing postpartum depression decide what treatment options are best for them." Years later, Cruise attempted to privately apologize, but insiders confirmed that he never truly forgave her for challenging the church's doctrine publicly. The feud never fully healed. Brooke was not invited to any future premieres or events Cruise hosted.
2. Brad Pitt.
Cruise and Pitt starred together in Interview with a Vampire, 1994, but behind the scenes, the tension was palpable. Cruise, already a major box office star, found himself threatened by Pitt's rising appeal, while Pitt felt suffocated by Cruise's dominance on set.
Brad Pitt's later comments: "He's the North Pole, I'm the South.
He's always coming at you with intensity. I like to keep things relaxed." Why Cruise hated him. According to crew members, Cruise viewed Pitt as arrogant, dismissive, and unwilling to collaborate. Worse, Cruise believed Pitt deliberately downplayed his performance in the film to make Cruise appear over the top and theatrical by comparison. Behind closed doors, Cruise also believed Pitt was jealous of his box office consistency. Cruise wanted final cut privileges, scene dominance, and control over visual presentation. Pitt wanted to play the role his own way. Their conflicting styles created friction so intense that they reportedly avoided speaking entirely outside of scripted lines. Cruise allegedly told a close friend in 2023, "Brad's got charisma, sure. But he was never a teammate. Never a brother.
He was competition."
The two have never worked together again, and Pitt has since made subtle digs about Cruise's need to be in charge in Hollywood. Cruise considers Pitt the embodiment of false humility, someone he couldn't trust.
3. Thandie Newton.
During the filming of Mission Impossible 2, 2000, Thandie Newton clashed with Cruise during their romantic scenes and action sequences. In a later interview, she described working with Cruise as a nightmare, and revealed he was intimidating, micro-controlling, and often demanding reshoots when unsatisfied with her performance. Her direct quote, 2020 interview: "He was really stressed. He tries super hard to be a nice person. But the pressure. It takes a toll." Why Cruise hated her. Cruise was deeply offended by Newton's retrospective take on their collaboration. He reportedly felt she betrayed him publicly after he tried to help her adjust to the franchise's pace and stardom. What Cruise viewed as mentoring, she saw as manipulation. After the interview, insiders said Cruise vowed never to work with her again, calling her ungrateful and unprofessional. Behind the scenes, crew members reported Cruise being increasingly agitated on set due to Newton's inconsistent delivery and unwillingness to adopt the fast-paced rhythm he expected. He eventually pushed for her scenes to be cut or shortened, which severely strained the relationship. When Newton laughed off his behavior in the press as awkward, Cruise saw it as a personal attack, not just on him but on the franchise. According to sources, he told associates, "She wasn't prepared. She couldn't handle it. And then she blamed me."
4. Anne Rice.
When Cruise was cast as Lestat in Interview with a Vampire, author Anne Rice was publicly furious. She believed Cruise was entirely wrong for the role and openly criticized the decision in interviews and letters. Anne Rice's initial statement: "Tom Cruise is no more my vampire Lestat than Edward G. Robinson is Rhett Butler." Why Cruise hated her. The attack came before filming even began, shaking Cruise's confidence and leaving him feeling undermined by the original creator of the character he was preparing for. He poured himself into the role, working on dialect, posture, and vampiric nuance to prove her wrong. After seeing the finished film, Anne Rice changed her opinion, calling Cruise's performance stunning and apologizing publicly. But Cruise wasn't moved. "You don't light the match and then apologize once the house is on fire," he reportedly told a confidant. He never forgave Rice for tarnishing his casting in the public eye, which he felt damaged the film's anticipation and made the production far more stressful. Though Rice reached out privately in 1995, Cruise refused the communication. To this day, Cruise considers the incident a lesson in why some creators shouldn't be involved once a project enters production.
5. Nicole Kidman.
Cruise and Nicole Kidman were married from 1990 to 2001. They starred together in Days of Thunder, Far and Away, and the erotic thriller Eyes Wide Shut. Though they initially seemed like Hollywood's perfect couple, their marriage collapsed suddenly after a decade, with Cruise filing for divorce shortly after their 10th anniversary. The rumors. Kidman allegedly refused to join Scientology fully. Cruise believed she was emotionally distant and didn't support his spiritual journey. Scientology insiders claimed she was a suppressive person, a term used to describe individuals seen as obstacles to a follower's progress. Why Cruise hated her. He once confided that he felt betrayed, not just by her resistance to Scientology but by her coldness toward their adopted children after the split. The children remained with Cruise and continued within the church, while Kidman was seen less frequently with them over the years. Kidman's award speeches often omitted Cruise. She once famously quipped about how divorce is great, saying she could finally wear heels again, an obvious jab at Cruise's shorter stature. Cruise has kept silent about the true cause of the divorce, but those close to him say Nicole remains his deepest wound. He feels she used him to gain stature in Hollywood and abandoned their family when the real test came. Despite public civility, Cruise reportedly has no relationship with Kidman today. He did not attend her wedding to Keith Urban, and she has remained estranged from the children she shared with him. Tom Cruise's legacy is complex. He is revered as an iconic action star and box office titan, but also scrutinized for his outspoken nature and the conflicts that have accompanied his rise. The revelations of the 5 actors and actresses he once hated reveal a man deeply passionate, protective, and vulnerable, traits that often come with a price of fame. Yet, in recent years, Cruise has spoken about learning from past mistakes, valuing loyalty, and focusing on meaningful connections over industry politics. He's acknowledged the toll his career and personal choices have taken but remains unapologetically himself. Thank you for joining us on this deep journey through Tom Cruise's life, from his dazzling rise to the Hollywood A-list, to the powerful rivalries and personal revelations at 63. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more stories about the lives behind the stars, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos. What do you think about Tom Cruise's story? Drop your thoughts and favorite Cruise moments in the comments below.